Welcome to the orientation for the Spanish Nerd Hybrid Workbook. If you're here, it means that you probably already saw all of my videos online and on the website where I'm saying, don't buy the Spanish Nerd because it's not for everybody, especially people that think that learning a language is going to be easy and that you can master the language with minimal effort. It's not for lazy people. Learning a language requires a lot of effort, and it means that you hopefully are very serious about learning Spanish. And I'm very excited because I always love getting messages from people all around the world over these last few years that the Spanish Nerd Hybrid Workbook has been published, of people saying how much faster they're learning Spanish now that they're with this program, or how much faster they're learning Spanish compared to other people that they're seeing that aren't using the Spanish Nerd. And that just makes me so super happy that this method is fulfilling its goal of just being the world's most efficient method of learning Spanish. And I'm excited for you. I'm excited that you're here and now you're about to start this awesome journey. Okay, so before we really get into the nitty gritty of this orientation, most of you are probably using the digital version either on your laptop or on your tablet like this, which I think that this is a better way anyways, because you can take this pen, you can draw on it, you can erase it, draw on it, erase it. The pages don't get dirty. I mean, the 21st century, I love that. Or you can even type on it, etc., etc., etc. There's just so much you can do with the digital version. I really think that this is the better option, but I also understand the people that use the printed version. But just in case you have a question about this, of like how to do it, as of right now, I recommend you just using a free PDF editor. There's so many free ones for Apple, Android, tablet, laptop, whatever, where you can edit all kinds of stuff on the book, erase it, and it's free. So I want to print it out, because some people have gotten the digital version and then they say, you know what, I really want to print it out because I'm old school. I like books and pens and pencils. I get you. I love it. I love it too. I like both. If that's you and you're wondering, can you print this out? The answer is yes. You can print one out for your own personal use. And you know what? I give you the rights to print it out for everyone in your household. I don't care if you're a family of 12 or a family of 19 in your house and you want to print it out for everyone in your house. Be my guest. So now let's really get into the orientation. And I want to start off by saying my goal with this orientation video here is to help you to understand the overall methodology of the Spanish Nerd Hybrid Workbook, that you can understand the methodology so profoundly that it develops inside of you a deep appreciation for this methodology that gets you excited. And it gets you so excited that that excitement fuels you to keep going through the entire course, not letting up, sticking to the method all the way till you get to the end, and then you become an absolute master of the language. That is my goal with this orientation right here. Real quick, if you haven't already seen the video on the SpanishNerd.com website where I'm talking about the two major flaws that all Spanish resources have, well, actually they have one or the other, and they're glaring flaws that are just really, really, really impeding people's progress to learn Spanish efficiently. I want you to pause this video right now, go watch that real quick, and then come back to this video right here. Okay, cool. Now that everybody has watched that video, that kind of just gets you started on why there was a need for this methodology. Again, just getting you started. We're going to get more into the methodology in a moment. One thing that I want to avoid is I don't want people going through the lessons and then getting, after a few times, being like, this is really all I have to learn for today. I'm just learning one thing for today. Today, just one little thing. I did a few practice sentences and that's it. That's it for today. Is this really the most efficient way to learn Spanish? That's it. That's it. I don't know. I don't know. I don't want that happening, which is why I promise you that this methodology right here is an absolute masterpiece, but you won't really be able to see it and appreciate to its full extent until you're already fluent in Spanish. And then you look around and you're like, oh, I get it. That's why it was ordered this way. That's why I was learning it just like this. Let me tell you why this is a hybrid workbook. Notice I specifically have that terminology, hybrid workbook. It's not just a workbook, the Spanish Nerd workbook. It's the hybrid workbook because it has videos that go together with a workbook where you do your lessons. But why? You need the videos and the workbook. They go hand in hand like macaroni and cheese. If you want macaroni and cheese, you have to have macaroni and you have to have cheese. If you just have cheese, that's not macaroni and cheese. If you just have macaroni, that's not macaroni and cheese. You need the two things. They come together, macaroni and cheese. The hybrid workbook, that's what this is. It's the video courses with the workbook. You need one to understand the other. So I'm gonna mention three really good things about workbooks, why workbooks can be great. So workbooks are to the advantage of adults. A child, you might have heard me say on social media before, a child that is 8 years old, been speaking the same language all day long, every day for 8 years, still can't speak more adult language like hypothetical situations and different more complex grammar. They just can't get there yet. Even 10, 11, I've seen, depending on the language and stuff, but for example, Spanish, I've seen native speaker kids finally start to get there a little bit more when they're in the 12 to 13 range. They start to kind of get closer to mastering the more expert level of Spanish conjugations. And again, that's like a native speaker speaking it every day for years on end. And I don't want to see you having to take 8 to 12 years to master the language. So a workbook allows an adult to sit down and see with their own eyes, basically working out the differences between their native language and the language that they're learning. In this case, you're learning Spanish, right? So you can use your adult brain to sit there and basically understand concepts within the first year that it took a native speaker 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years to finally start to master. The number two thing that I really like about workbooks is, of course, you do have to have immersion to learn a language. You have to get out there and use it, but there's a lot of pressure. There's so much pressure, and pressure tends to not be so good for people's memory. So there's definitely pros and cons to immersion, but you're kind of getting the best of both worlds when you're getting immersion and sitting down and doing lessons. You can sit there with no pressure and understand the concept, maybe at nighttime with a cup of tea or whatever. Cool, I understand this one new grammar concept. And then the next day when you're getting immersion, you can actually see it in action and your brain is like, oh yeah, I just learned that. And it's so much more efficient. And the third thing that I really like about workbooks that I'm going to mention right now in the orientation, I'm sure there's more things, but the third thing that I want to mention now is it's getting you more involved. So being involved in some kind of action is good for your memory. So you will get that in immersion, right? You're involved with smells and visuals and stuff like that. But this is just another aspect of being involved. So comparing in this way, I'm actually comparing it to maybe just like a complete video course that has no lessons that you're actually doing. In this case, you can get involved. You can be focused on one thing. You're practicing it. You're seeing it with your own eyes as you're drawing it and then you're writing it. And then you go back and you read it again of what you did. It's better for your memory. It's better for retaining what you're learning. So you don't want to only have workbooks. You don't want to only have immersion. You don't want to only have this or that. Hitting it from multiple angles, I should say, is really good. Now, workbooks are great, but now I have to talk a little bit about things that I don't like about other workbooks or other programs. So whenever you are using like another book or another website or this or that, there's so many different resources out there for learning Spanish. But one of the things that I don't like is when you're about to get into your lesson, before you get into your lesson, you're having to read and understand something that's so new to you. You read like one paragraph, maybe two paragraphs, maybe three paragraphs, maybe four paragraphs of explaining this new concept that you're going to get into. And you're even sometimes having to look up linguistic terms to even understand their explanation that is explaining this new grammar term or aspect of grammar to you. And it's so overwhelming and it's stressful, which stress is bad for your memory. And then by the time that you get to the actual lesson where you're having to practice what you just learned, your brain is tired, you have cortisol in your brain from the stress. So what I've done with this is that is why the explanations of how this is working, or the explanation of the grammar, right? They're in videos and they're not explained in this complicated professor talk of linguistic terminology. It's like it's just me talking to you in normal human terms saying, "Hey, look, this is what you're about to learn." You can even in a lot of the parts of the videos, just if you want to, shut your eyes for 90% of the time and imagine what's being said if that helps you, but it's relaxed, it's not sending stress through your brain. And it's just like, look, you're learning this one thing today plus some vocabulary or whatever, and that's the explanation. And then after you've understood the one thing that you're learning for the day, then it's like, okay, boom, let's get into it. Now you're excited to and not stressed out and getting into the lesson. All right, let's get even deeper into the methodology of this course, why it's laid out and why it's structured the way that it is. So please, if you have your book handy, which you should, please go to this page right here, the pillars and foundation of the methodology. So the first thing on the pillars of the methodology, as you can see, is verbs. Verbs are so vital to learning Spanish. You can always judge a person's level of Spanish by their level of verb. If a person only has beginner verbs, verb conjugations, the conjugations means like kind of the way that the verbs are used in Spanish. Let's just leave it at that, a very simplistic explanation. But if they have a beginner use of verb conjugations, their Spanish is beginner, no matter if they've been learning Spanish for 1 year or 12 years. Same thing. If their verb conjugations are intermediate, their overall Spanish is intermediate, so on and so forth. Verbs are so essential. You've probably heard me say on social media before that there are people that we've seen living 10, 12 years in Mexico or Argentina or whatever Spanish-speaking country, and it's mind-blowing to me that they're still speaking beginner Spanish. And guess what else is beginner? Their use of Spanish verbs. You have to progress with Spanish verbs. The more you progress with using Spanish verbs, the more your Spanish will progress. I don't care if you know 100,000 Spanish words. If your verb conjugations are basic, your Spanish is going to be basic and beginner. Now, you might flip through the book real quick and go, wow, this is like mostly verb conjugations. It is verb heavy, but here's the thing. There are other verb books out there, or there's other books out there that are just verb books, but they have their own problems. They either don't know how to explain verb conjugations in a way that you understand, or maybe they can explain some of the verb conjugations in a way that you understand, but an expert like me looks at it and goes, wow, but the order that they're teaching you is so out of whack. And then another thing is none of the other resources have figured out how to teach you the exceptions, the irregular verb conjugations. And don't let that scare you. That is why this is such a masterpiece. One of the reasons this is such a masterpiece, because it's breaking it down in bite-sized pieces in a day-to-day order, in a logical order, and with even the tougher things like the irregularities, it's taught to you in a way to where it's like, look, this is just what you have to memorize. Memorize this because it is so valuable to memorize this right now. And then on another day, you're going to memorize some more. Like you have to trust me that no one has cracked the code on this until the Spanish Nerd Hybrid Workbook. So verbs, this is very verb heavy, but there's a lot of other surprises in here. As you're going to see, it's not just a verb book, even though it is very, very verb heavy. So the number 2 pillar that you're going to see right here is vocabulary. Now, this might seem like something that's just like, okay, that's obvious. He's teaching me some words. No, picking the right order at the right time of when to teach you certain vocabulary that you're actually going to be using. So it's like, what are the most important words that if you're starting from zero, what are the most important words that you can learn today to go out and use tomorrow? If you're only going to know 10 words today or 10 words for tomorrow, what are they going to be? That's what you're going to learn today. And it stays in that order. Oh, and then the other thing is that there's not many nouns. So like things like tree, house, floor, things like that. Why? This is so obvious, but other people aren't doing this. Is because a couple of reasons. Is one, you're going to learn those when you're getting immersion. You have to go out and get immersion. You're going to learn those. Okay. So you're going to be seeing a lot of like pointing, what is this? What is that? And they're going to be saying, oh, well, this is called that. Like you're going to learn a lot of names of things, right? When you're out there. But the other reason is that the nouns that I might need to know, let's say I'm a mechanic, but you're a doctor or a nurse or something like that, okay? The nouns that I'm gonna be needing tomorrow and over the next few weeks and next few months are completely different from the ones that you vitally need to use. So I'm gonna need to know how to say crescent wrench and hammer, whereas like you're gonna be needing to know how to say scalpel, medicine, things like that. So you can individually like look up the words that you're gonna need for tomorrow or ask somebody if you're in an environment with Spanish speakers. But why waste everyone's time by putting a lot of nouns in the book that you're going to be having to throw half of them away, right? No matter what. So those are not in here, but it blows my mind. It absolutely blows my mind why so many other Spanish resources don't think about that. I truly think that nobody is as passionate about helping others learn Spanish as I am. I hope that it's exploding from my ears and eyeballs of how passionate I am about this. I think other people, I think they're just trying to get your money. I think they're like, hey, I speak 2 languages. How can I get a money grab out of this? Okay. I don't want your money unless you're serious about learning the language and you really, do you see where I'm going with this? Anyways, but that's the thing. And then there's another beautiful thing about the vocab, that the way that it's implemented, which is it's called cognate vocabulary words or cognate words. We're going to get into that a little bit lower below on this same page. That is another beautiful feature of the vocabulary list. Anyways, let's go on. So the next one is immersion. You see right there, immersion. Here's the thing. That you notice is one of the top 3 pillars of the method here, one of the top 3 pillars. However, even though it's one of the top 3 pillars of this method that I created, I can't give that to you. That's the crazy thing. This is something that you have to do. Only you can give yourself this vital thing that you have to do, which is getting immersion, getting out there with people that are speaking to you in Spanish and you're absorbing it, you're using what you know, and you're just getting immersion. That's where the real magic happens. You probably remember me talking on the website in the video about the steroid shot versus the exercise. If you put them both together, you're really going to take off faster than if you do one or the other. You see what I'm saying? So only you can give yourself the immersion that you need. Now, I do want to say a few quick things about immersion is you need more immersion than studying. You're going to notice that the way this is set up is I only want you studying 10 to 20 minutes a day, and then you put the book down, you put it away, and go get immersion. That brings me to my next thing. There's several different ways of getting immersion, okay? The best is actually getting out there and hanging out with groups of people or people that are just only going to speak to you in Spanish. Get as much of that as you can. If you can't get that, there's some other ways. You could maybe online with somebody that's willing to only speak to you in Spanish, like on video calls. You can also do artificial immersion. That's what I call it. So like movies, music, TV, YouTube videos where you're only watching in Spanish. That's very good. You do want to try to get in a position where you're also using the language, not just hearing it, but that's great too, getting that artificial immersion. And yeah, but get as much as that as you can, because you need more immersion than studying. Just like you need, like the exercise is so fundamental, but the steroid shot boosts the most important thing, which is the exercise, right? Okay, last thing that I want to say about immersion right now is that you can also get immersion with a Spanish immersion teacher, and maybe you're already doing classes with someone that I've connected you with, because if you don't know, I've trained native Spanish speakers from Mexico all the way down to Argentina that are now experts at teaching people Spanish with immersion classes via video conferencing, no matter where you are in the world. And with that being said, make sure that you are reminding your Spanish teacher what you need to be practicing, which is in the Spanish Nerd Hybrid Workbook. So whatever, if you're, let's just say you're doing 1 class a week, okay? Send them screenshots of your notes from the past week and say, these verbs, I want these verb conjugations and these vocabulary words I want to practice, okay? All right, let's go to the next thing. So if you go below the pillars, there's the first piece of foundation right there, which is no fluff. Here's the thing. We take out things that you don't need to be studying. So let me just say this right off the bat. It doesn't make sense to have a book this thick. The Spanish Nerd is about this thick whenever it's printed out. And you don't need a book that's this thick, okay, that teaches you every aspect of Spanish, every aspect of the grammar that exists in Spanish. It teaches everything. It's the most comprehensive thing. You don't need that. You really, truly don't need that. It's filled with fluff. And here's why. So much of the stuff that you'd be learning in a book that's that big is stuff that you're going to learn easily in immersion. Like I talked about the nouns, right? Pointing at different things and learning how to say tree, how to say house, how to say, what is this? Oh, a wrench. Okay, cool. You see what I'm saying? But there's also aspects of grammar too. And so I'll give you an example. Most people already know that in Spanish, there's two ways to say V, right? It's el and la. So things like the house, the car, the boy, the man, etc., right? Now, a lot of people are like, oh, how do I do el or la? What is it? And a lot of language books, Spanish learning books, will have a section often in the beginning where it's explaining this to you. And it's like, yeah, here's a way to kind of know most of them except for the exceptions. And like, even if you have one day's lesson on that, it's wasting your time because you can learn that so easily when you get immersion. You're going to hear like that 100 times. Like, for example, bottle, you're like, la botella, la botella, la botella, la botella, la botella. You hear la so many times attached with botella. It just comes natural to you. Or el carro, el carro, el carro, el carro. You hear it so many times, you just know what sounds right. It's not la carro, it's el carro. You've heard it so many times. You learn that so easily and naturally in immersion. So why waste your energy, your brain power, and most importantly, your time sitting there and just wasting all of that when you're going to learn it when you're getting out and getting immersion simultaneously? That's why we're cutting out the fluff. Now, here's another example of fluff. There's fluff of just things that are just absolutely ridiculous. We're going to see in a lot of apps and books. Well, hopefully I'm saving you that you haven't had to see this, right? Hopefully I'm saving you if you found me early on in your Spanish learning career. But a lot of Spanish learning resources teach you the most ridiculous things. And like sentences, for example, the boy loves wearing purple pants. The ball is big and yellow. And I could rant about this for hours, but do you see how silly that is? Why not just learn sentences that are helping you learn the verb conjugations that you need at the level you're at, with sentences that also at the same time are sentences that you can go out and use tomorrow. You may have even seen some of my videos that have done really good on social media where I literally go out here in South America and I go out and I go use silly sentences like that to people where I'm like, the boy wears purple pants in Spanish. And it's like, they look at you like you're crazy. How does that help you, right? So anyways, I don't want to go off too much on that, but no fluff. Very, very important aspect of this methodology is we want to be as efficient as possible. So we want you to be able to use your quote unquote baby brain. That's like a sponge. When you're in immersion, you're thinking like a baby. When you're at home, well, for the most part, you see what I'm saying, symbolically. And then whenever you're at home, you're sitting down and you're studying the Spanish Nerd Hybrid Workbook, the stuff that's a little bit tougher to learn in immersion, but you're using your adult brain with an expert that's breaking it down piece by piece for you. I hope that makes sense. Okay, next part of the foundation, logical order. Now, I've touched on a few of these things. So the logical order of the vocabulary, it actually makes sense compared to other resources. The logical order of the verbs compared to other methods that are trying to teach you how verbs work in Spanish. It's a logical order. So I want to give you a quick example that I'm just remembering. So a few years ago, I was looking at a Spanish learning workbook, and it was a new one. It had its supposed new methodology. And, granted, there were some pretty interesting differences, but this is just a really wild example to show you how it is that I can't even begin to understand how they can reason this way. But the first lesson of the book was having you memorize sentences. And I'm just going to say one. One of them was asking, what religion are you? I'm this religion. Things like that. And other questions that would be inappropriate to ask somebody when you first meet them. I'm not going to get too deep into the other examples. I just think that it wasn't appropriate. But the thing that really upset me, and I mean this truly, it really upset me, is I calculated that I forget how many lessons it was deep in that it finally taught you how to use basic verb conjugations that you need to start using today if you want to start chatting with people and not sound like and actually be understood a little bit, right? And I calculated by the lessons, I was like, well, if you break it up like 1 page per day, it was something like, I want to say 2 or 3 months before you even get to what you really needed to learn. Do you see how backwards it is? And so many Spanish learning resources do similar absurd things, and that's why I one of the reasons I have a chip on my shoulder against so many of the Spanish learning methods that were available when I was studying Spanish using all the methods, and now later on looking back, I see how absurd they are, and then seeing that everything that's come out since then, they stay doing these, making these same absurd mistakes. So logical order is super, super important. All right, now I'm gonna try to keep the next few sections short because I don't wanna make this video 2 hours long. I could, because I love talking about methodology of learning languages in general, even beyond Spanish, but let's just try to keep this short. The next one is mnemonics. You can see there. So basically these are memory aids. Memory aids are so powerful. You may even come up with your own memory aids that you like. How do I say this? I'm going to give you in this book a particular formula that I think is one of the most powerful formulas for learning foreign language vocabulary, but you may even come up with some different, have some different memory aids, maybe with, there's a few different ones, but I do put in here my favorite. I didn't invent it, but later on in another video, I'm going to break down the formula for you, but they're very, very powerful. And I cannot stress enough how much you should be using mnemonics, or in other words, memory aids. And I'll just say this last thing on the subject is that there are people that can learn up to 100 vocabulary words or more in just one day when they have a really good method of using memory aids, right? So it can really fast track your language learning. Let's move on. Cognates. Cognates is basically, again, we're going to get a little bit deeper into this later, but cognates are shared words between the language. So for example, music and música in Spanish, if you look at the two words, they look almost the same, except for in Spanish as an A, but they come from the same root word. Now, these are very powerful. They do make cognate books. Like you can buy a book online that is like 1,000 Spanish cognates or 5,000 Spanish cognates that are shared words with English. But the problem with that is that the fluff that I talked about is they'll put thousands of words that you don't need to know, even though it technically is a cognate, but that word is like, yeah, I don't even think I'll ever use this word, right? So there's a beauty of how this is put together with cognates and how deep we dived. I'm going to break it down a little bit more later, but it's something that no other resource in the entire world has like this. It's a masterpiece, but it's very powerful to learn shared words. Now let's go to the next page. We have building blocks right here. So this really goes hand in hand with the method, the idea of the logical order, but this is kind of getting a little bit deeper. So I've specifically structured it to where the vocab that you're learning one day is going to help you put together sentences for the next few weeks or for the rest of your life. The order, it's hand selected in a way, it's structured in such a way that you really are just building on top of what you already know. One of the examples is like the verbs. So you're learning some verbs and then you're building on top of those verbs by changing the ending and stuff like that. It's just the building block method it's even going to get you to a point to where you can probably start to figure out some stuff without having to have someone hold your hand throughout the process. And you can even start to, on paper, start to think in Spanish and not even needing English, because you're like, okay, I already know all these words here. Now I can just take them and I'm putting them together like a puzzle, like Tetris or something like that. And I can build on top of it. So it's really, really a beautiful order of just helping you build on top of what you already know. And unfortunately, a lot of other Spanish resources don't do that. The apps, I will agree that there are some Spanish learning apps that are getting a little bit better at that aspect, but there's not a whole lot of great things I can say about the apps, but that is one good thing. To be completely fair, they are getting better at that. So I'm gonna wrap it up with saying this right here is that you will only fully appreciate this method. I hope, hopefully you have a certain level of appreciation for it right now with this explanation, but you will only fully appreciate this method after you've already mastered Spanish and you're looking at other people, the way that they speak Spanish, and you come to find out that they've been learning Spanish 2 or 3 times longer than you, or even more. And they're way down here and your level of Spanish is way up here. And you're getting to know them and you're asking what methods they learn. Maybe they even let you see what book, Spanish learning book it is that they're going through, or the app that they're using. You're like, let me take a look at that. And you're seeing the method that you're using. And then you're like, wow, no wonder they are learning Spanish so slow, even though they're getting immersion. They live in Mexico or they live in Chile or whatever Spanish speaking country. And only then is it when you're going to realize and you're going to say to yourself, wow, the Spanish Nerd Hybrid Workbook, that is an absolute masterpiece. Well, thank you for being here at the orientation, my friend. I will see you on the day 1 video.